And this is how we welcome you to Artistic Spot, a podcast about art, talent, and entrepreneurship. In Artistic Spot, you're actors of your movies, singers of your musicals, and writers of your books. In Artistic Spot, you are also the artist. Today, episode 89, we have a very special guest, and we are recording this episode from Full Sail University, and this is how we welcome Dr. Kari Whaley.
Hello.
How are you?
Doing good. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful and very happy to have you in Artistic Spot and as part of our story, sharing your story,
Yep.
which is amazing. Kari, she has 2 master's degrees, one of them from Full Sail.
Right.
Most recently, a Master of Fine Arts in Creative Writing. She has a PhD, she has a doctorate in teaching, consultant, public speaker, you name it, she has done it. And she's also a stand-up comedian.
Yes.
But I want you to tell us your story and share how life has been for you and everything you have done from growing up in St. Cloud and being part of the St. Cloud Chamber of Commerce and how you ended up here at Full Sail and being in charge of the personal development, being a course director and teaching.
Well, I have always been really passionate about learning, right? So even as a kid, I was that really nerdy kid. I had a rolly backpack. And like it would get kicked every day on purpose, right? Like people would kick my backpack and I would be like walking with my nose in a book. And so it just kind of felt natural to continue pursuing degrees and also to work in education. So that's kind of how that happened. I started out my bachelor's degrees in social sciences because as a kid, I really loved history. And so my dad was really into history and my stepdad was really into politics. And so I was always around this like kind of chatter about that. And so that's what I studied when I first went to school. And my first job was working for a US senator. And I was there for a couple of years and it was really exciting, but I figured out really quickly that it wasn't for me. And so then that's when I moved into teaching and started teaching social studies, classes like world history, US history, and then studied it more at Georgetown through a fellowship where I had the chance to do a real in-depth study of the Constitution and like founding documents, which also then really spurred some of the other work that I do with the Peace and Justice Institute, my understanding of really foundational inequities that have existed, throughout our history. And so I had all of this kind of academic knowledge about this. And years ago when I started facilitating with the Peace and Justice Institute, it was like I had found a way to apply that in a community setting to start doing my part in addressing those inequities. So that's like a little bit, and then of course came to Full Sail.
And then what about that background in politics? What did you learn about that and why you decided to step out? Because some people, if they're craving to do something and start to do something in politics since they are children, they tend to stay and grow up within the system, let's call it that way. What made you decide and say, this is not for me, this is not what I thought it was, and why?
Yeah, I had this view of politicians, elected officials, really statesmen and women, as this really noble pursuit, like this service to country where you spend your time crafting laws that help support people and help contribute to a better life for everyday Americans. And then when I started working as an aide, it was exhausting, and not in a bad way, but like it's with a 24-hour news cycle, it feels like there's always something and there isn't a lot of recovery time, right? It's like one thing to the next thing. And so I started out, my first job in the senator's office was as, my title was staff assistant, and I basically was the receptionist at the front of the office. And so people would come in and I would help greet them. And one of my jobs was giving everyone fresh Florida orange juice, right? So like that was what I did. So like every time people come in, can I offer you some fresh from Florida orange juice, right? So I did that for a few months. And then I got promoted to working as kind of an aide in the office and doing more engaging work with like the community. And I really loved the work, and I learned a lot that a lot of folks didn't know the extent to which the government serves the people, right? And also the differences in the different types of government, like the federal government and the things that are done at the federal level and the state level and the local level. And so like we would get folks who were really upset about trash pickup, calling the senator's office to get help. And so then one of the things that we would do is help them find the right person in the right level of government. And so I started to see this real kind of gap in that some folks weren't getting support that they needed because no one was like creating clear communication to find out how to get that help, you know? And then it just would be frustrating because like as a constituent, you would have to call 10 different places just to get an answer to this one thing. And so then that really motivated my passion to be in the classroom, like with middle school and high school students, teaching them early, like this is how our government works and these are the ways that you can address issues that you see in your community or your state. And so that's how that bridge kind of happened. But ultimately, I was working for the senator. I found out I was pregnant with my son, Reese, who is now 11. And then he was born, and it just felt, I wanted a change of pace once I had him. And so I didn't want to be commuting as much, and I didn't want to be, having the same hours. And so then that's when I transitioned to teaching because I felt like I could have a lot more time with him, get done with work at like 2:30, and then be able to spend a lot of the day like as a mom. So that's when that happened.
And how did you end up being the president and founder of the St. Cloud Chamber of Commerce?
Sure. So it's actually been around, I think, since 1923. So it had a long history in St. Cloud. I grew up in St. Cloud, which is right outside of Orlando, and it used to be this really small agricultural community, and I grew up on a cattle ranch. And then over many years, with its proximity to Orlando, it has just like there has been so much growth. And so it's not quite a small town anymore. It's now really, even with its own identity, kind of an extension of the Orlando area. And so, we've seen a lot of that. So I had been working at the Osceola, it used to be the Osceola County Historical Society. They've rebranded to now be Osceola History. And I was working on this really exciting project. The Historical Society had been awarded a $1 million matching grant from the state of Florida's Cultural Affairs. And we were, building and moving buildings to create this authentic pioneer village, right? Like set in the days of early white settlement in Florida. And so like in doing that, I networked with a lot of people. Like it was this great opportunity to build a network because I was liaisoning a lot with local governments and different boards. And so the opportunity came up with the St. Cloud Chamber of Commerce. And I was interested in it, and I had built this track record of the work I was doing with the Historical Society, but I was also very young, like I think maybe 27 or 28 at the time. And So I said to myself, like, I think I would be really good at this job, but I didn't know if anyone else would support me. But so I reached out to them and I said, I've had some folks tell me that I would be a good fit for this job, and really, like, folks was me telling myself I would be a good fit for the job. And they considered my resume, and it was this kind of long interview process. But then I got the job and spent a couple of years working with the St. Cloud Chamber of Commerce, doing a lot of community development, really at the the grassroots level, working a lot with local business owners, small businesses who employ maybe just a couple of folks, and are really grounded in the community, like mom and pop shops,
Yes.
And also a lot of larger businesses that were really important as well to the local economy, like St. Cloud Hospital, which is one of the biggest employers in our community. So I was doing all that work, and then there was like a little bit of like politics that was like spiced into that, because what part of my job was advocating for these folks and for the support that they need. And so with that business experience, I on a whim saw a position available at Full Sail teaching in the business school, and applied, and so here I am.
And you're in charge of the program as well.
I am in charge of our mastery courses, and so that's kind of the start of the program, but we do have a program manager. Her name is Victoria Wassinger, and she oversees the business intelligence program and the entertainment business program in their entirety.
And how did you end up deciding and say, it's time to go back to school, it's time for me to try something else? And how did you end up going to school for a master's in fine arts in creative writing?
Yeah, so I had before that spent almost a decade going to school as a college student. And so my first degree is in social studies, and then learned a lot, loved it, but then didn't quite end up there. And then I became a teacher, and I did an alternative path to teaching because I didn't have a teaching certificate. So part of the ways you can get that certificate is to get a master's degree in an education-related field. So in some necessity, I chose my first master's degree because I really needed that teaching certificate to continue having a job. And so I did a master's degree in teaching of social studies. And so that felt really practical. And then, from there, as I started seeking out leadership opportunities, my doctorate is in leadership, and so it felt like a really natural fit to give me the education I needed to be in leadership roles. But all of that was made from a very practical place, this is the objective, this is the end goal, and it served me well. And so then once I found this home at Full Sail, and really started to immerse in the community, one of the opportunities that we have as employees of Full Sail is to apply for a faculty development scholarship. And if you get awarded the scholarship, you can go through a program of your choice at no cost. I mean, there are some little costs in there, but ultimately we don't have to pay the full tuition if we get awarded the scholarship. And so that felt really exciting. And I thought, what would I study if I have no objective except to just enjoy, right? Enjoy learning and what that feels like. And I had done through my career a lot of writing, but very purposeful, business or academic style of writing. I'd written a dissertation. And so I love writing, but I had no confidence in creative writing. I just felt terrible, it would be terrible. I mean, this is because I remember distinctly in middle school being asked to write a poem, and I wrote a poem about the color magenta, right? And it was terrible, right? And so that was the end of my creative writing career. 7th grade, I was done. I'd written one poem, I hated it, I was embarrassed to have to read it, and then, I was done. And I remember doing the SWOT analysis in mastery that we have to do. And I was looking at my weaknesses, and they were all really weaknesses in confidence.
Yes.
I didn't have the confidence to move into a creative space, because I had really found success in this just like task-oriented space.
Correct.
And it is hard to go from finding success in a checklist, like every day, as the leader of the chamber, like at the end of the day, I could look at a checklist and say like, yes, I was successful today. I did all of the things that I needed to do. But in creative writing, like, you can't do that.
Yes.
There's so much uncertainty.
Correct.
And so you have to sit with some discomfort in knowing like, I don't know if I'm doing it right. I don't know if I'm being successful. And so I just wanted to explore that and like have fun in a degree and choose a degree for like this life that I could envision for myself that was outside of all of these very practical choices that I had always made.
Do you think that was part of maybe stepping out of the comfort zone and stepping out of the box and say, I have to reconnect with that Kari back home when she was in 7th grade, when you started the mastery class for your program. So were you able to reconnect with that Kari? What did you learn now that you didn't know about yourself that you now know, but you didn't know when you were in 7th grade?
Yeah, so, I just started exploring. The funny thing about teaching mastery is I teach a lecture on like returning to your origins. And I was teaching this for over a year before I had to really confront that I was not returning to my origins. And, I remember as a little girl, and this is where comedy comes in, I was always doing these like impersonations and like really so crude. My mother would like die. I always impersonated Jim Carrey with like going around my house, like just like saying all these wild things that he would say, and like, all of it. And my mother used to call me her pastel princess. And so it was like, she was like always like mortified, but also like very supportive, right? And so it was, so then as I started writing and writing creatively, one of the ways that I write creatively is writing stand-up comedy for fun. And pre-COVID was doing, a lot of mics in our local area. And it was just like this reconnecting to like what I just enjoyed doing. Like I just loved entertaining people. And it, one of my favorite books is Julia Cameron's The Artist's Way. And she talks a lot in the beginning of the book about how creatives often find a practical version of what they truly love. And so like I loved this performance piece and this like kind of writing tying into that performance. And so, right, like the practical version of that is being a teacher.
Of course.
Right? And so it's like I have an audience 3 days a week and I write these lectures and so it wasn't a far step. Like once I started seeing it in that way, like I ended up in teaching because I love writing and I love performing. And so, but it feels safe in teaching. And so what feels scary is saying, I'm gonna do this to entertain people and let's see how that goes.
And how that has been pre-COVID and after COVID, of course, stand-up comedy. You may be asking yourselves, okay, she has 2 masters, a PhD, she was involved in politics. You wouldn't think that someone with your background would be standing up front of an audience making them laugh. So how has been that experience for Kari as a human being? What have you received from that audience as a feedback? And what have you learned from that you didn't know before when you decided to step on stage and make people laugh, which is one of the most amazing things you can do for someone?
Yeah, so it started because I took a class at SAC Comedy Lab in downtown Orlando. It was like a couple months long stand-up comedy class where you learn like the basics and you create a set and then you perform. And I had this great teacher. He's local and he is a professional entertainer. And So we went through this class, and the week before our showcase, which would be the first time I was on stage, so SAC, if you go through the class, you can perform at SAC, and like, you know, people are there and you invite people. And so a week before, I was like, I can't do this. I'm not doing this. And my teacher, Ali, he was like, you don't have to do it, but just come to class. Because I was like, I'm not coming back to class. And he's like, you don't have to do it, but come to class and just like see how you feel. And also you could just support other people, right? So I did it. And after class ended, we sat in the room at SAC, and he was like, why aren't you doing this? And I was like, I can't do it. Like, I can't, the idea of going on stage and just like bombing was overwhelming. And anyway, he talked me into it. We ended up talking through my whole set and figured it out. And then I went on stage and it was great. And also I have bombed and it's been terrible. And, but like writing out these bits is like in some ways kind of healing, but also challenging, because like you're bringing out these most embarrassing parts of yourself and telling them to people on stage. And so, you know, like one of mine is about when I was in high school, I did this rodeo beauty pageant.
Oh my God.
I know. And I won unexpectedly, right? Like even like I was still very, very awkward in high school, but my family history, my great grandparents were founding members of a horse riding club that eventually became the Silver Spurs Rodeo. And so I've always just been around this rodeo, and it's the largest rodeo east of the Mississippi. And so it's this really big deal in my family to be a part of this. And I used to ride in something called the quadrille, which is square dancing on horseback. Okay, so like as a child and in high school. And I never really felt like I fit in. And so I decided I was gonna do Miss Silver Spurs. And in some ways, I felt like in doing that I had to win to like prove to my family that I belonged with them, right? Like this, like I just like desired this belonging because I didn't feel like I really fit in. And so, you know, like my dad was like, my parents were so supportive, and my dad was like, you know, it's okay if you don't win, like trying to set the stage that I wasn't probably gonna win. But like my mom sent me to classes in Winter Park to learn how to like sit properly and walk on a stage and like be a lady, you know what I mean? Like all of these things. And anyway, and so then I won, I think to my parents' surprise, maybe not, maybe they always had faith in me. And I was so excited about winning that I commemorated it with a tattoo.
Oh wow, really?
Yeah.
That's wonderful. What is that tattoo, if I may ask?
Okay.
We can't tell.
Yeah. And so like I sometimes tell this story as a part of my bit, and it's like, and in some ways it's like, yeah, I did this really stupid thing. And so here it is, like we all do stupid things, so.
But it's an amazing story because you were able to challenge yourself to do something.
Yeah.
And that's something that you have been doing ever since you were a child.
Yeah, it's, I learned in that if I focus on something and really commit to it, that I find that I'm usually successful. Even if I don't win, or even if like it doesn't work out the way I had hoped in the beginning, like I find that I still get a lot from the experience, and it pushes me into the next kind of stage of being, so.
Yes. Now, Kari, you have been very supportive to local companies, local nonprofit organizations. What's next for you? What have you been doing since you started your master? You recently graduated from creative writing. So you have Applaudsville, which is a project you have. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so it's something I'm still developing, and it came out of this idea of like not taking life so seriously. And also because a lot of the work I do feels so heavy and serious, especially some of the workshops that I do with the Peace and Justice Institute. We're talking about really heavy topics, and we're sharing really important stories about identity and belonging and inclusion. And so through kind of dabbling in stand-up comedy and then moving into creative writing, I recognized that I had this opportunity. I had been given these opportunities, or these opportunities have been created for me to just like play, right? Like just like lighten a little, you know? And so then that's like really kind of where the idea for Applaudville came from, is just finding a way to support and celebrate just like playing. Because also I find so much of what we do, myself included, it's like we're gonna do it and we're gonna be the best, or we're gonna be successful or professional at it, right? And so it's, you know, like I kind of grew up with this idea that like if you're not gonna do it right, then don't do it.
Correct.
And I even found myself like saying that to my son sometimes, right? So like if you're not gonna do it right, don't do it. But like we lose so much of like the journey and the joy when we only do things like for that end. Mm-hmm. And, you know, so I don't ever plan on being a professional comedian, or like, you know, becoming, you know, one of these like amazing comedians that we see. Like I started pursuing it because I felt a passion for storytelling and writing and sharing stories and entertaining people, and that's why I did it. And so it felt almost also like there's not the same pressure because it's just for fun. It's like for play. And so then like with that, I thought, well, like what else can I do? And so then I signed up for a package of swing dancing classes, right? And like,
so you're doing pretty much a little bit of everything.
A little bit, just like all of these things. And so when I was in high school, I was also a cheerleader, but I'm very like kind of clumsy or like heavy-footed. And so when I would tumble, my cheerleading coach would call me the water buffalo, right? And so I never, like, I didn't dance because like I was like, I'm too heavy-footed, I'm not graceful enough. And then, but I always like love watching people dance. And so I signed up for these dance classes locally, and I think it was like 8 weeks or something like that. And I had so much fun just like not being a good dancer and with no goal. Like I had no goal at the end, like to do a show or to become a dancer. It was just like, I'm only here to enjoy. And like the movement of dancing is so fun. And so it was like through these little things that I began to like really realize that I find so much joy out of doing these things that I never encountered because I thought I wouldn't be good at it. But I don't need to be good at it. Like I can just do it to enjoy it.
And to have fun.
And to have fun. And so that's like what I'm trying to build. We'll see what comes of it though.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Some of the things that I really appreciate from you, and I have seen it on your social media, which you're going to be giving to us in a few seconds, is that you are a very happy person. So how do you celebrate life through happiness?
Gosh, I think that a lot of it is a choice, you know, like taking time to do things that are fun. And also just like in the mornings, I get up and I go for a walk outside and just slow down. And years ago, I went through a yoga practitioner training, and I know, right? Like I'm like, that seems fun.
Bucket list.
I will do that. A friend of mine once asked me if I just like wake up in the morning and like spin a wheel and then say like, oh yeah, I'm gonna learn how to scuba dive today. So I did this yoga teacher training. I actually came to it because I was in a really difficult place in life, and I wanted something to fill my time that wouldn't be harmful, right? So like I didn't want to go out drinking and like those kinds of things. But I thought that if I didn't commit myself to something, that's what I would end up doing. So I just like randomly signed up for this almost year-long yoga training that was on the weekends and that my son wasn't home. And through that path, I just learned so much about the body and the way that we hold tension and stress and trauma, and the ways with which we can like ease that in our own, it's all in our power, right? And so it's like, even when I'm in these like really challenging situations, I can come back to breath, right? And like I had a yoga teacher once tell me, like, take a deep breath and feel your body expand and know that you can expand, right? And then release all of that and know that you are empty, but that is okay because you will expand again, right? And just like the way that those kinds of things, slowing down, focusing on those, really shift mentality and the approach to things. And so like, I think like just a lot of it is in that.
What's next for you? You have done a lot of things.
Yeah.
A lot of things. You have a lot of things on your list, and everything has been marked on your bucket list for now. What's next for Kari? What do you want to do next? How do you want to be remembered?
Gosh, well, I just want to be remembered as someone who tried new things and like was okay with doing things for fun and not for a certain outcome. And next, I really want to write something, like, I don't know, like a collection or something like that. Like I'm feeling this like real pull to start shifting my focus into my writing for a little while. And so that's what's coming. But I love performing in the applaudville stuff. So I am performing at Orlando Fringe.
That's awesome.
Coming up, so
Yay.
That's exciting.
We'll be there supporting you then.
Yay! I have a solo performance.
Wow.
One woman show that I'm writing, right? So it's fun. It's just trying new things and writing, performing, and then adapting and enjoying the next thing. And so I hope to kind of be remembered for those things and for supporting my community and just like really being involved in that. So we'll see where all that takes me.
It's amazing. So where can people follow you? If you can tell
Yes.
them your social media, your
Yes.
website,
Okay.
so they can discover everything you do, everything you say, which is amazing, and everything you post, which has a very strong message. Where can they follow you?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram at Kari Whaley, Kariwhaley, because it's a tricky spelling sometimes.
Yes.
I get that a lot. Also, some of my work is on kariwhaley.com, and then my new site dedicated to play is applaudvillepresents.com.
Now, before we leave, Kari, I would like you to tell and to give our audience a message.
Okay.
If you were given the chance to tell them a message from the bottom of your heart based on your personal experience, what message would that be and why?
That the world is heavy and life is heavy, and to seek enjoyment and joy, and that it is there, and that it can be in small places and it can be outside of our comfort zone.
Thank you so much, Kari, for joining us today, episode 89 of Artistic Spot. And for those of you, our audience, thank you for tuning in. And next week, don't forget episode 90 in Artistic Spot, where you are also the artist. The end.